to share with us. So the idea is for everyone to speak from their perspective, their angle, their point of view, and see how it can be useful to other people. I think it will be very enriching. And of course, you're welcome to leave the room and go somewhere else if you want to hear about a different topic, because we have 5 going on in parallel. I'd love you to stay with us, but you're welcome to change rooms at any time. So first, I sincerely want to thank our speakers, those who are going to be sharing experiences, as well as our guests who will share their comments. And of course, thank the entire team that is behind this initiative. Some broadcasting details I'm going to read out. As I said before, we are broadcasting on streaming. You're able to watch streaming using the FAO YouTube channel or the website, or you're able to use the at FAO America's Twitter account. You can talk about this event on social media using the hashtag FAO Transforma. And we invite you to share your comments and in the Zoom chat as well, so we can look at them together at the end of the session. We ask you to please keep your microphones on mute unless you're speaking, and we ask our presenters to share their screens full size so that we don't have any distractions during the presentation. So we are going to have 3 parts. We have a note from the interpreter. We're hearing the moderator speak with an echo.
Qué raro. No hice nada. Antes estaba bien, ahora no sé por qué se está repitiendo. A ver, ahora creo que mira pues. Ya, ahora sí, perdón. Entonces, como yo les decía, vamos a organizar, digamos, esta conversación en 3 momentos. Primero,
we're going to divide this into 3 sessions. We're going to talk about
la segunda en
3 different
Guyana.
experiences.
Una visión más regional, digamos,
Then we're going to get a little bit more of a regional vision from Guyana. And then we're going to hear about an initiative from Argentina. And each speaker will have 10 minutes. And at the end of the session, we will have the Q&A. But before that, we're going to hear 2 sets of comments. They're external commenters who are here with us. We have Jairo, Flores, and internal as well, Joao. So without any further ado, Joao Intini. We're going to invite the first speaker, Marisol Marinho. I hope that I've said the name correctly. Marisson de Melo Marinho, manager of social biodiversity of a regional supply company. Marisson, I apologize if I lost some details about your profile. You're welcome to introduce yourself further if you want. He's going to talk about a very interesting experience. It's a wholesale market program that they have in Brazil. So Marisson, please go ahead. 10 minutes. Thank you so much for participating.
Muchas gracias por estar acá. Me gustaría
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm so pleased to have this opportunity. It's very important to us to offer Brazil's experience in such an important area. The wholesale produce market. We've been around since 2016. I'm thankful to FAO. We have a long-standing relationship. And as we've heard, for us, it's an honor to be here. So I know we're short on time. I'm going to be talking about the wholesale produce market in Brazil, a program called Prohort.
El próximo.
Could we go to the next slide? An institutional presentation, a little bit about who we are. CONAB is a public company. It's the national supply company under the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Supplies. And it's in charge of agricultural policy. We're in 26 states.
Marisson. Creo que perdimos la conexión con Marisson. Sí.
We seem to have lost connection with Marisson's audio.
Es importante hablar que la CONAB y la
Okay,
FAO,
we're back. CONAB and FAO have had partnerships for many years. We have worked in the framework of South-South cooperation. We've worked with South-South trilateral cooperation as well, Brazil, Colombia, FAO, and with the Latin American Federation of Supply Markets, FLAMA, FAO, and the Brazilian Association of Supply Centers, ABRASIN. And we also participated in a research project on the economic and social impact of wholesale markets on urban food systems. We also were part of the founding and participating in the regional network of public supply and commerce systems. So CONAB and FAO has had long-standing partnerships. So in this project specifically, all produce production in Brazil is absorbed basically by the domestic market. There's an unexplored market for export, and there's a difference in productivity between the least and most technified producers or growers. And we've seen changes in logistics and potential for growth. In the past decade or perhaps 20 years, we've seen investment in technification, especially in certain states such as the north and certain areas you can see in green toward the coastal south, where we see increased technification, and in Minas Gerais, where you can see near Brasilia as well, for fruit growing, fruit crops. So this would be like a supply center. We have 17.5 million tons marketed in 2021. We have 3,236 producing municipalities from 20 provider countries participating with 11,000 wholesale merchants. And we have 900 products with 2,100 commercial varieties with 70 supply centers located throughout Brazil. If you look at a map to see where these supply centers are, every capital has a supply center, but in the southeast, we probably have the most near Rio and that area. Got 36, Sao Paulo as well, the main supply center of Latin America. And we've got a very large design of all of these different supply centers throughout the country. So it's very important to our supply and to getting food to the tables of Brazilian people.
Prohort is a program that started in 2005 with coordination from Agriculture Ministry, and CONAB was doing the coordination of the program. The main goal is to develop and integrate statistical databases for the supply systems to universalize the generated information, but thus reducing the asymmetries with the public, and to modernize the operational technical management activities of the supply centers, and to add the knowledge generated in the agri-food systems. There were international budgets at the beginning for the creation of the databases. For example, in Ciasas, there was no internet, there were no computers. So there was a budget for investments, and at the beginning of the program, accountant softwares were all very important for the consolidation of this program. We will do this faster. We have three basic systems: the yearly system that does all of the control of the financial systems of marketing. And as a matter of fact, they have published all of these analysis. There is analysis of the market, how it behaved in the different fruit and vegetable sectors. What's important here is that in 2019 or 2020, there is a reduction of 2.7% of the marketing activities right in the midst of the pandemic. And in 2021, there's a recovery of the economy with a growth of a 6.8%. You can see the blue graph where prices also, we have that in 2019 and 2020, there's a reduction of the volume, but the prices are much higher. You can see how the prices have increased. These analyses, we see it through region, amounts, values, and it is possible to analyze the behavior of supply per region. Next one, please. Exports, for example, mango is 12%, melon, lime, watermelon, they're all products that can be exported, and there can be a comparison done on this area. Here we have a monthly system that is very interesting for us, that talks about the origin of the product, price, and volume. And we started analyzing climate influence and the different harvesting systems, how they behave, the harvesting of these products. Right now, there is an analysis of the main products that have more representation in the different areas. So the same thing is we have a fruit and vegetables that is done in these areas. The analysis is also done by considering monthly publication, and as a matter of fact, an analysis of prices and volumes or market analysis, lettuce, potato, onions, carrots, tomato, banana, orange, apple, papaya, and watermelon. This is also an analysis with different examples. This is a production map for the regions, and it is also possible to do special analysis in fish and flour as well. We analyzed the different supply centers. Here we have the crisis committee that was analyzed, where there was a consideration in prices and volumes. And we see here an executive summary done on a weekly basis for climate and prices, and considering the different supply activities that allows for higher prices. In this site where we have these different publications that are all, by the way, open to public, general public.
E o último, que é preço diário. Acá é muito importante, que é para smartphone.
And also something important is that we can use this on the smartphone, and we can control 48 products in 35 supply centers for producers. Everybody, all consumers can check the products. As an example, if yesterday there was an activity in CRGs, today you can see the prices. It is very important to highlight that CONAP works in association with CIASAS and ABRASEN. The CIASAS collects data in different markets and filters data, and we work with cooperation agreements. CIASAS receives publications and information of its work, and some of them have technical equipment with their own analysis, but others do not, and they're supported in CONAP. We have certain challenges where there will be a control of the different food banks to stop with waste. There is a number of cases for food banks and the reduction of losses. There's also a use of residues in composting and gas plants, for example. There is a need for investment and technology to increase control and traceability of the products with qualification and standardization of boxes and packaging. There are different types of activities, all this to be able to qualify food and cooperation. I did this very fast. It's a very simple presentation, and I am open for any questions or clarifications. And thank you very much. I am here to help and discuss with you. Thank you very much, Marisson. Very interesting. And with Brazil, we're always impressed with the size of everything that exists. And of course, we have thousands of questions, but all the questions will be directed to the last part of the session. We now will offer the floor to two colleagues that will be talking about exactly the same subject or topic. First of all, we will have Oleta Williams, Technical National Coordinator of the Guyana office in FAO talking about school food in Guyana and how agriculture is related to social protection in a very interesting case that will be shared with us. And then we will have Jorge González, who will be providing us with a regional perspective of sustainable schools, among which we have the specific case of Guyana. Oleta, then, you have been offered the floor, and I would like to let you know that Oleta, in her free time, enjoys graphic design. So Canva and others are her best friends, but now she will be talking about other activities, which is school feeding in Guyana.
Thank you so much, Mina. Good morning, colleagues from Guyana. Can you hear me well? Yes, perfect. All right. So as Mina mentioned, I'm Oleta Williams, the National Technical Coordinator attached to the FAO Guyana office here. And let me just firstly say that's indeed a pleasure to be here with you to really share the story of Guyana and how nutrition-sensitive agriculture is really being championed here in the country. So my presentation is really divided into two main parts. Firstly, I will give you a really good overview of our intervention at FAO and how we've been working with the national counterparts to really strengthen the existing efforts. But also I have a video which will form the second half of my presentation, and where you will see for yourselves from persons on the ground how nutrition sensitive agriculture is really being focused on in Guyana as well. So let's begin. Trying to change the slide. All right. So I'm not too sure, most of you might be familiar with Guyana and its context, but just to say that Guyana is only English-speaking country in the South America region, and we are also part of CARICOM, which makes us share a very close-knitted relationship with the Caribbean community. And so just to say also that school feeding has actually formed a rich part of our history, which dates back over 40 years. So this is definitely not something new, but it has been something that the government of Guyana has really championed over the past few years since the 1980s. So we do have a unique situation in Guyana with the school feeding program. First and foremost, although there's an umbrella national school feeding program, there are 4 different types of sub-programs which fall under this category. And so on the schematic to my left, which is the diagram in the blue there, you would see the 4 names listed there, and the names of the school feeding program really give a hint as to the type of meals and so on that are given to the students. And so firstly, you have the peanut butter and cassava bread program, you have a community-based hot meal program, a breakfast program, and a juice and biscuit and snacks program. The breakfast program was actually only implemented as of 2016. So that's actually one of the newer programs that was started in Guyana. Additionally, in the diagram in the middle, that's actually a map of Guyana, and it highlights the 10 administrative regions of Guyana. And these administrative regions are really their governance districts, as we would call them, and they're, as I mentioned, there are 10. And the map really highlights and shows that in each and every one of these regions, there is at least one type of school feeding program, which really tells the commitment and the extent of the reach to ensure the nation's children are fed. So overall, when you think of the National School Feeding Program, there are over 80,000 beneficiaries at the nursery, primary, and secondary levels. And this currently represents about 48.6% of the total student population. And so this is a general overview of the school feeding program. There's lots of information about the different types because each is quite unique in its sense and has their own operating modalities and so on. But that's it in summary. So colleagues, school feeding, as I mentioned, has a rich history in Guyana, but also agriculture shares a similar history as well. And so according to the statistics, agriculture actually supports about maybe 20% or so of the local economy and contributes to the GDP as well. And so the crops such as rice and sugar and cash crops as well also form a rich part of our history. And what we recognized is that there was a need for greater strengthening between the agricultural sector and the social protection sector. And what we thought is to utilize the school feeding program as a way in which we can possibly bridge the gap between these two what was seen as different sectors, but share a lot of similarities between them. And so in order to do this, we thought two things. We need to, one, make agriculture production sustainable for smallholder farmers and producers and their families as well. And secondly, we needed to ensure that there is a provision of sustained, healthy, and nutritious meals to school-aged children in Guyana, both rural and also urban as well. So this was generally the transformation theory that we thought about when we were thinking about the intervention FAO would make. So as I mentioned, our project was quite unique. It was an FMM, the Flexible Multi-Partner Mechanism, and as FAO colleagues, I know most of you may have heard about the term before. And what we sought to do is to really be intentional about focusing on people-centered results. And so while we had a number of products and outputs that were specific to the project, what was important to us was to be able to focus on how this would impact people on the ground. And so in the pie chart in the middle there, I've highlighted the 4 and also 5, a 5th one, transformative products of the project. But on the other hand, I also wanted to highlight some of the specific results in terms of what we saw in the interventions with people. So first and foremost, we did a status update, a rapid assessment of the state of the National School Feeding Program in Guyana. And what we saw is that there is currently a gap in policy. And so Guyana currently does not have a national school feeding policy. And because of the limitations within the project, what we did, we actually developed a policy framework that would lead to the eventual development of a national school feeding policy for the country. And this policy really highlighted some specific pillars that would be incorporated when the policy is developed. So some of these pillars were enhanced nutritional support, focus on expanding the reach. So as I mentioned, the current reach is about 48%. And so to be intentional about expanding that reach as much as possible. Of course, another one of the pillars was to focus on the local agricultural sector and to be intentional in ensuring that the sector is supported while simultaneously supporting the school feeding program and needs of the program as well. And of course, another pillar was in relation to the strengthening of the governance mechanisms. So ensuring that the various programs do not work in silos, but collectively are able to work together to have greater impact on the ground. Secondly, we executed what was called an agroecological assessment, and we utilized one of FAO's tools called TAPE. That's a tool for agroecological performance evaluation. And we're using the 10 elements of agroecology, which we know them as the social aspects, the governance arrangements, the environmental considerations as well. We undertook an assessment in the field that targeted over 300 smallholder farmers. And through that intervention, we were able to help these farmers to understand the market requirements of the National School Feeding Program. And we also connected them with the extension officers from the technical offices in the country to work so that they can work together to strengthen their capacities to fill this gap. So now farmers are more educated and have a strengthened capacity in terms of what is required to be part or support the school feeding program. Thirdly, we drafted and designed a pilot homegrown school feeding program. And this is another one of FAO's methodologies as well, the homegrown school feeding program methodology. And so it actually is it's an actual guideline. And what we did, we utilized that methodology and what we know in the country in terms of linking farmers to the school feeding programs to design a pilot program for consideration. And what was significant about this program is really was to ensure that at least 30% of the produce are bought from local farmers in order to sustain the school feeding program in specific communities. So there is that intentional community focus as well, while of course ensuring that the children have access to the nutritious meals, as I mentioned earlier. The fourth output and result I really wanted to highlight was the success we've been able to get in terms of building the synergies between the education sector, the agriculture sector, and the social protection sector, which historically have not really worked together. And so under this project, we were able to bring 6 government institutions who we found were key players and stakeholders in the process to bridging this gap and ensuring that there's coherence between agriculture and social protection. So that in itself was a success, to be able to bring these different stakeholders together to talk about a topic that they might have looked at in silo. And oftentimes when you hear of the school feeding program in the country, you might just think of the Ministry of Education, which is the custodian and lead implementing focal point agency. But we recognize that there were other roles that needed to be played by other stakeholder agencies as well at the government level. Finally, I wanted to highlight that the membership of the school... the membership of the School Meal Coalition was also a good success for us. In July 2021, the Minister of Education would have actually signed on to this. And it was good because it had a specific focus on supporting pandemic recovery, because we all know the effect COVID had on school feeding programs worldwide. So, colleagues, this really brings the end of my first half of the presentation, which gives a summary of the project as a whole. But I really wanted to show you all a video which we produced to highlight how the livelihoods of smallholder farmers can be sustained while simultaneously ensuring that school-age children also benefit as well. So please indulge me as you enjoy this little video from Guyana and hear from many stakeholders. Let me know if you can hear it well.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher. I want to become a vet.
To be a doctor when I grow up.
I want to become a lawyer. Change the world.
Hello?
I'm sorry, Oleta, I think we're having problems with your video right now.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Thanks again.
Hello from beautiful Guyana, everyone. My name is Chandel Rodriguez, an intern attached to the FAO Guyana office. Today, I am happy to tell you all about the school feeding sub-program implementation in Guyana. Are you ready? Let's go. In a post-COVID-19 world, school feeding programs are even more of a priority because they help countries to build a healthy and educated population while supporting local economic development. Together with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations Flexible Multi-Partner Mechanism, Guyana is strengthening the linkages between school feeding programs and smallholder farmers. in rural and hinterland communities throughout the country.
As part of our efforts to provide safe and nutritious food for all, Guyana has adopted measures to consolidate its national school feeding program. We are strengthening the linkages and synergies between consumers and food producers so as to deliver safe, healthy, and nutritious school meals. This will also help provide small farmers with a guaranteed market for a portion of their produce.
Today, we are journeying to Marinho, Region 1, the most northwestern hinterland region of Guyana. We are here today with the head teacher of the Santa Rosa Primary School located in Moruca Subdistrict.
Cheryl Atkinson. I'm a teacher of Santa Rosa Primary School. This primary school has the largest enrollment in the sub-region with a total of 620 pupils. We have been benefiting from this feeding program for several years now. We have seen improvement in pupils' attendance and punctuality, increased level of performance at national and internal assessment. Our local businesses and farmers are also benefiting because the kitchen purchases groceries, meat and fish, fresh fruits and vegetables. Most food items are being sold from the community. The cooks are also given a stipend, which boosts the income to provide for their families. Parents are also saving since they don't have to buy lunch for their children like before. The quality of the food is wholesome and nourishing. The pupils are provided with a balanced diet. I can safely say the feeding program is a beneficial venture which goes a long way, and I am very grateful to the Ministry of Education for that. Thank you.
Now we turn our attention to pupils of the Santa Rosa Primary School. Listen to their story.
Hello, my name is Kleiner Jepes. I attend the Santa Rosa Primary School in Region 1. Many schools across the country have been benefiting from the Ministry of Education school feeding program. My school is one of them. Since this program started, it is really beneficial to us. Nutritional food are offered. We eat in comfort and so many more benefits. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
My name is Justin Lewis. I reside at Kamaka, Morocco, which is located in region number 1. I attend the Santa Rosa Primary School. From home, I normally walk about 2.5 miles to get to school with my cousin nearly every day. Sometimes we are picked up by the bus and are dropped off safely to school. Our school's feeding program provides a delicious meal for all school children every day. They give us fruit juice daily with a variety of nutritious foods, making it a balanced diet. Since I'm in grade 6 preparing for my national grade 6 exam, I need a lot of energy and nutrients to keep me working hard. Our school's feeding program fills this need perfectly. Therefore, I wish to thank the school's feeding program for their service because we all benefit. I wish this service would continue for us and the many pupils of the future. Thank you.
There are countless other stories of the benefits and successes of the school feeding program in Guyana. And so, even at the highest level, there is a national drive to ensure school meals continue and, more importantly, are linked with farmers.
Christina James, and I am the chairperson for the Brooklyn Women's Group. We are situated in Mabuma, in Region 1, Guyana, and we are processing group. So we produce cassava, cocoa, coffee, cashew, and we also have a shade house that we produce seasoning and some vegetables. We have been supplying the schools with our locally made cassava bread and our cashew, our seasoning, and they were able to purchase some vegetables as well from us. And that's been a great help to the group towards marketing our product. The school feeding program has benefited me as well as my grandchildren, also members of the community, and some of the women from the group who are farmers. They were able to benefit from the feeding program as well.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for your attention. I'm available should you have any questions. Really appreciate your attention.
Muchas gracias, Oleta, y gracias por compartir.
Thank you so much. And thank you for giving us a taste of the tropical. Looks lovely. And your presentation was so interesting. We will actually leave the comments and questions for the very end. So we're just going to keep it moving because we don't want to run late. I'm not very good at keeping on time. So we're going to invite Jorge González to give us an overview, a broader overview of the sustainable school feeding programs in the region. He's a consultant at the Mesoamerica regional office of FAO. And he's going to be talking about what we are doing in Regional Initiative 1. All of us who work with a healthy food and diet. Jorge, in his free time, likes to read and walk. And now it is his turn to speak about sustainable feeding. So please go ahead. Thank you. What an excellent presentation from Guyana. Congratulations, Guyana, on your work. This is a very brief overview of some experiences in sustainable schools that we've had. We want to say that there's around 85 million children and teenagers in Latin America who are receiving school food assistance. So this method is really driving countries and states to take actions around public policy and school feeding, just as Guyana has explained with their holistic approach. From a broad overview, the food and nutrition plan for the entire world is basically focused on a couple of strategic areas that we promote, such as better nutrition, but FAO also recognizes what school food means to development and nutrition and childhood. These four areas we focus on in terms of global nutrition and food is something we heard about from Guyana. Having more inclusive value chains and also having healthy food environments at schools and food and nutrition education and policies and regulatory frameworks and legal frameworks that are conducive to healthy school food. So how do we understand the concept of sustainable school food? Basically, it's integrating a holistic standpoint, whether it's from the institutional perspective or having appropriate healthy school menus, pedagogical methods as well, education, reforming school infrastructure, and family purchases as well. So here we can see a summary in this graph, this holistic overview, this innovative look called Sustainable Schools. And we should mention that this methodology was created as part of the technical international cooperation done with FAO under the premise that schools are the suitable space to develop this type of experience. Starting in 2011, we've been developing these initiatives throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. We can point out in Belize, Jamaica, Honduras, Paraguay, a lot of countries from the Caribbean, El Salvador, also Panama has joined. And these are pilot projects, but we also see places like Guatemala and Honduras where we've moved from a pilot into a methodology that is practically a public policy with its own legal framework and own stable budget guaranteeing food for school children. Here we can see a table of how this methodology has developed through to 2021. From 2017 to 2021, how we can see the number of municipalities involved go up, the number of schools go up, going from 3,000 approx to 23,000, going from 283,000 students to 1.6 approx million students, and family farmers as well, going from 1,300 to 9,300. And so it's a very innovative, holistic viewpoint that includes all of these dimensions, but there are challenges involved as well. And one of those challenges is to follow up on integration in agriculture and social protection or social welfare, in this case, specifically school feeding. And to wrap up, we're working with a network of sustainable school feeding. It's RAES, RAES. It's part of the Brazilian government with the International Cooperation Program and the support of FAO. And we're working with them to combine all of these experiences. You can actually visit this RAES website and you can find an abundance of information that will be useful to help you scale up these public policies if that's what you're interested in doing. So thank you, Mina, and thank you to the audience for your patience from Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you, Jorge, for that presentation. It was brief, but it managed to give us a really broad overview of what's going on and what's happening in Latin America with school feeding. It's really interesting, and it's great to integrate all the countries together. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask our next speaker, Ornella Calvete from Argentina, who's going to be talking about an interesting experience working with municipalities on waste. She is a food engineer and as a specialist in food systems working at the FAO National Office in Argentina. And I'm not going to say any more because it's, I'm just going to allow the speaker to speak. Maximum 10 minutes, then we're going to have to cut it off. I'm sorry. Thank you. In my free time, I really like soccer. But let's get straight to the point to not lose any more time. First, I want to thank all of you for being here with me, sharing this beautiful experience, Argentina, called Municipalities Without Waste. I'm going to show you a couple of screens about some hard facts of the program and to give you some geolocalization of where we are, because that can give you a lot of information about the project. So tell me if you can see my screen. Able to see my screen? Great. So as I said, we call this waste-free municipalities. But this is the long name of the program. And we draw on experiences of good practices for food consumption and production in a more sustainable fashion in municipalities and local governments. It's in the framework of the technical project to support the national food waste reduction plan in Argentina. So it is part of a larger project that was focused just on food waste. And it involved lots of stakeholders, including municipalities, and that's the part we're talking about today. So the proposal based on reducing food waste requires coordinating all of the different stakeholders. And the idea is to have a sustainable and inclusive and resilient food system in a very challenging context, which in this case was the pandemic. This happened in the first semester of 2021, as you can see in the table. And as part of the multiple impacts of food waste, which is precisely what we see here, this experience contributes to the 4 betters, contributing to better production, better environment, better quality of life, and better nutrition. So I'm going to keep moving. So we've helped 11 municipalities in 6 provinces of Argentina. You can see that it's a wide selection because what we wanted was really diverse participation. We wanted it to be as federal as possible and deal with food waste in very different results or very different contexts to see if the results would vary. We also wanted to have data that could be replicable. If we go back to Sustainable Development Goal 5 about gender from the 2030 agenda, we also wanted to focus on the role of women in agri-food systems. We work with an integrated gender approach, putting together the terms of reference, and we also make sure that women are focused all the way up to the end and that we have a consultant. In this case, we had 3 male consultants and 3 female consultants. Now, perhaps the core of the experience. This experience happened in 11 municipalities. The idea was to provide food to implement a strategy for responsible production and consumption of food, with our point of departure being reducing waste, but also taking into account the characterizations of each of the beneficiary neighborhoods and thinking about economic and social feasibility of the proposals. So with that said, working with our national counterpart, we chose 11 municipalities trying to have a good federal overview, and then working hand in hand with them, we defined a sector to prioritize. We weren't going to be able to do a whole municipality in just 3 months, so we decided to have priority areas in each municipality. On the right-hand side, you can see the priority sectors. We have 4 markets for fruits and vegetables, 3 food fairs, the general gastronomy sector, the pear and apple produce chain, and also waste. So we did a diagnostic of the sector, and then we proceeded with an implementation plan of the proposals approved by the local municipalities. That's all I'm going to share, but from my screen, I'd rather look at you to talk. 2021 was a hard year due to the pandemic, but we worked with local consultants, and it was done 100% virtually. We couldn't do the conventional field activities, which was really hard for us. We had to do virtual, quote unquote, field work. And based on that, we developed our publication, Experiences of Best Practices for More Sustainable Production Consumption of Food. And I'm sharing with you our website for our program in the chat so that you can see the final output. And I would also like this to serve as a model for other municipalities and strengthen ties between the national, municipal, and local level. At FAO Argentina, we felt it was a very enriching experience, no matter how you look at it. It was really tailored but it was also designed to be replicable. So if you have a municipality that maybe has similar characteristics or wants to work with one of the sectors that we've done, you can use this as a reference. As I said before, each municipality had a diagnosis done for its sector, then a strategic plan, and then we also defined limitations and impediments to implementing the plan. We looked at the deadline, the amount of money, the investment, the stakeholders, because we had to classify if we needed to do capacity building or where the gaps were, or if we needed some type of strategic technology. And the idea was to determine the economic, social, and demographic impact of the project. This is very difficult to measure, especially for local governments. I don't want to go on too long. I thought that this would be very, very difficult at the beginning to do this entirely virtually, and we were really concerned about interest during this time, but we found that it worked and we were able to transform it to an opportunity to work elbow to elbow with the municipalities. And it showed the capillarity. It allowed us to see FAO representation. We're more present than ever because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to have such close follow-up with the municipalities and towns that are so remote.
The developed her sound is cutting out. I would like to highlight other characteristics that are quite heterogeneous. Many municipalities consider to work with different sectors, and we have here the work with fairs and the agri-food systems, depending on the role of the whole system. In those cases where there was no coincidence, we would always find important agreements. We would find the common limiting elements, especially in development. And the development was done with specific meetings with each of the municipalities, but also it was done through plenary sessions where the different municipalities and consultants would participate actively by exchanging opinions, information, and providing the opportunity to find solutions in joint activities or even replicate success activities of other locations.
Elaboración del plan de organismos como bancos de alimentos.
Perdón, que te habíamos, sí, ahora sí volviste, te habíamos perdido, pero aprovecho.
We had lost you, but I would like to let you know that you have half a minute left. Even though our scope was up to the implementation plan, we have advanced in many of their proposals, and I would like to highlight one of the specific cases of a municipality where there was a possibility to develop a project together with other ministries. And as a starting point, the waste of food and the work done in this project. This is a success, and we're feeling very good about this, because what we're looking for is not only the specific result of virtuous cycles, but through this component, we want to drive common areas to go through this path. And I'm done. And even from choosing consultants, we want to look for an innovative perspective, and we created a team. It's interdisciplinary work. We have lawyers, engineers, psychologists, technologists. The team was very good. And to end with my presentation, and I think I ran out of time, I think it would be important to share the success factors. So in this sense, I would like to highlight the good link that we created with the counterparts based on the commitment, flexibility, and respect. And on the other hand, and it is not a minor issue, we always had the support of Sara Granados and Joao Intini that when providing technical support, participated in all of the plenary sessions. That was really highly valued by the local governments. So I would like to take the opportunity then to thank them and their teams. And I hope I didn't get you dizzy and not have gone too fast. Thank you, Ornella, and thank you very much for sharing this experience. That, of course, yes, it's a very beautiful experience. And it is always very interesting to be able to present this. Now, given the time frame we have, and because again, it is very hard for me to stop your presentations, we are slightly delayed. I will offer the floor to our first commentator, Mr. Jairo Flores. Jairo is an economist. He is a parliament member from Guatemala and coordinator of the parliamentaries struggling against hunger in Latin America, and also from the Guatemala chapter. Thank you, Mr. Flores, for being here with us. And you only have 3 or 4 minutes at the most. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Warm greetings to all of you. As I am a parliament member and a politician, to use 3 minutes is very hard for a parliament member, because we really like to talk, but I will make an effort. I would like to let you know that it is an honor for me to participate and comment here in this important area in nutrition, especially hearing the presentations that are all framed in the area of agriculture, family farming, of school feeding, and to avoid a waste of food, and other subjects that are all very important and that we are dealing with in our Parliament front against hunger in Latin America, which is an area where I work as a coordinator. I would like to comment that in Guatemala, we have been driving law initiatives in certain areas, and one of them that already became a final law is school feeding. We see the need for this in a wide area where it is really related and interrelated. We have a world crisis, the crisis generated by Russia, Ukraine, that have meant that there is a very complicated situation for family farming, that individual production with high prices of fertilizers, of agriculture supplies, means that today, together with climate change, it is challenging the production of family farming. This makes the risk stand out in terms of consumption, but also in selling their products. This can harm quality of agricultural products and increase people that will have a food damage. We see how this is affecting economy and food security in many areas. From a number of days already, we are considering that should be a food emergency declared in Guatemala because of what is going on nowadays. Nonetheless, there is a very important call to support family farmers and to avoid food waste that can really feed and support much of the population, and also to be able to promote these laws of school feeding that in the case of Guatemala is really helping a number of thousands of children. It started with 14 cents and we were able to increase to 80 cents. But also we were able to cover more groups. The first coverage was for just the beginning years of education, and now we are able to feed the next cycles in school. This can be done in a world context, as mentioned, and also with high indicators of hunger and malnutrition, where there is a 46% of children that have some sort of malnutrition, and there is alarming data of acute malnutrition with no data, but expresses that it is very high. We have an average of children that are somewhere between 100 and 120 children with malnutrition and per year, forcing us to request this food emergency so that more resources can be destined. And sometimes it's not even resources. As the parliamentary front, we're working with budgets and we allocate resources enough. But the problem, I believe, is in the quality of public expenditure and the quality of the products. And I think it is important to have the international community, civil society, and the observatories to be able to enforce the optimum use and proper use of resources, and that they can be really guided or directed to those that are in need, meaning that people that are in this food vulnerability, we see many times that there are other superficial expenses considered, and they're not directly for what was approved. There should be a baseline, a measure of the impact of the programs of laws and activities that are being done, just to know whether we are doing the right activities and to be able to reduce that harm that we have in many of the areas in Latin America, especially Mesoamerica, that where it really harms children, that the hungry children. In this region, the hunger looks like women, children, and indigenous peoples. Thank you very much. I try to be as brief as possible. Thank you, Jairo. You were great. And it was very interesting, your perspective as a politician and what you are presenting here when considering or confronting this new food crisis that is already here, really. It's not just coming. And to be able to end with this second block of comments, I will offer the floor to Joao Intini. Joao is an officer of food observation and FAO here in the region. Joao is Brazilian agronomist and has a master's degree in family farming, and not long ago he was able to obtain a PhD in education. He is current an officer of food policies. Joao, you have the floor. And I would really like to thank you if you can be as brief as possible so that we can have some time for a Q&A round after these very interesting presentations. Thank you, Joao. Thank you, Mina. The truth is that after these three beautiful and interesting presentations, we could continue working here. And afterwards, I will be talking to Jairo Flores and continue talking. First, I would like to thank the presentations and congratulate you. They're all very interesting, very organized, and with relevant information. What is more important of what we heard here today is to transform the food systems. That means commitment, work, science, governance, alliances, politics, and everything, policies, excuse me, and everything that is related here to the three presentations that we heard. And yes, to transform the agri-food systems as we want to have them done, we have to consider the need of creating horizontal alliances and allow more people participating in the agri-food systems, that these systems should be resilient and inclusive. And furthermore, to really tackle the gaps that exist in terms of gender and youth of all these vulnerable populations, to open an area for SMEs and cooperatives, and everybody in the academia and other areas in a stronger fashion. So this is the task of all. And talking about each of the presentations, I will be very brief, Mina. I first would like to send hugs to Marisson. We have known each other for more than 20 years. So we're here looking the same, as young as always, my friend. Marisson's presentation really expresses the importance of having important allies as the different markets, to have the possibility to make transparent markets, to offer different alternatives to consumers, but more than anything, with digitization, to offer relevant information in the decision-making process, to design and implement public policies, and as Jairo is saying, to really be able to consider the increase in prices and food crisis. And it will be done with public-private alliances with participation of different stakeholders. Guyana's presentation led a beautiful presentation added with Jorge's presentation. We can see how school feeding is so important in different countries, and it places in a very strategic place the different providers of family farming and children, how it is important to consider food within schools more than anything, given the presence of a government that is considering these different measures. Guyana has developed different works, and I would like to congratulate Guyana because it will be the next country that will be holding the FAO's presentations and support consumers, environment, and others.
And talking about Ornella's presentation, it's so great to see your commitment and enthusiasm, and that of other FAO Argentina colleagues too. And it's so important to see that there is a story behind everything we do. A seed that was planted in Argentina by Ornella and her colleagues can grow into something much bigger. There's a story to tell that will continue growing, continue incorporating new characters, and it will join the local to the municipal, creating an important synergy at the local and municipal level where local stakeholders are essential. The markets, open air fairs, gastronomy, tourism, all of these is bound up in critical topics related to food. And now that we can understand this from a standpoint of the circular economy, we are going to gain new allies and new areas, and Argentina is setting the bar high as a challenge for us. I think Argentina is a leader in country in this development and this local and municipal development. I cannot forget to thank our regional team, which talks to Ornella, con Marisson, con Jorge, with everybody who's here, Sarah Granados, Walter. We're having lots of names mentioned, can't get everyone in. We hope that you all feel part of the structure that we've heard about. We're all united, we're all a team, and we are all committed to transforming agri-food systems. Colleagues, beautiful presentations, lovely to listen to you, and thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Joao, for that very interesting set of remarks. And now we have our next issue, I guess we'll say. We are supposed to go back to the plenary at 12:30. And we're supposed to have a pause now for all of the participants, but I could propose taking maybe 5 minutes if there's any comments or questions, because it's always very important. And then we'll have a few minutes before we go back to the plenary, if you're all right with that. If you're feeling okay for that. And so just reminding you, this whole thing is recorded and we can go back and watch it later a little bit more calmly. And of course, contact information will be available for our speakers in case you want to get in contact with anyone. But I would like to leave the microphone open quickly if anybody wants to make a comment. Or maybe you're all hungry and tired. I think we all might be hungry and tired. I have a question, I'm available if you have questions. I think there was so much information that everybody's a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe our participants don't have any questions right now, and we could just take a break. So I think we'll just close it out here and allow you to have a couple of minutes of break before we go to the final plenary to close. And I want to say that I found it was really interesting to see such a wide diversity of projects that are available at the FAO and that people are collaborating on at the FAO, looking at pricing and wholesale markets and school feeding programs. We were able to see also a wide variety of stakeholders and involving local and municipal governments is another topic that's extremely, extremely important. So thinking from public policy and the national level to in the Prohort program in Brazil. Looking at pricing and transparency for end consumers. Especially in this pressing time of food crisis. School feeding is part of that crisis, and it has been and will going to be more important than ever in order to support children who are in the most vulnerable situations in our region. So, no hands, nothing in the chat. So again, thank you to everyone. We all feel very inspired. Fran has again left you the link in the chat. You're going to have to use that link to get into the final plenary session where we will be summarizing and closing this out. And we will be hearing about some findings from a study that was recently done about resources and FAO knowledge and innovation. It's like recently baked, it's fresh off the stove, this presentation, so we invite you to continue in the third block of this fair. Thank you. 12:30, link is in the chat, and I'm sure you've all been sent it as well. Thank you. Thank you again to our speakers and to our commenters. You made this very interesting. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Muchas gracias.